It's now 9:14.
Suckling on the teat of tech with Paul Brislen and Wammo on Kiwi.
Talking high-tech, auden.wordpress.com. Paul Brislen, one word on Twitter as well. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, how are you?
Very good. Now, you texted through the topics to me just a little bit earlier, and the first one said Mininova Goneburgers, and I was like, oh, so I was going to be talking about something out in space, and then it suddenly dawned on me, oh no.
Oh,
no, don't tell me one of my go-to sites is gone.
Yes, I'm afraid so. Not entirely gone, but Mininova is one of the, probably the world's largest, how would you describe that, BitTorrent file sharing sites.
Larger than the Pirate Bay?
Yeah, well, they claim it was.
Okay.
So, you know, in world of marketing, largest is always an interesting term. But yes, they've been battling through the Dutch courts to be allowed to continue to operate. And basically, the Dutch courts have said, well, you can continue to operate. We know you're not going to be responsible for all the content that people are sharing using your website. However, if you don't take action to remove stuff that looks like it might be copyright material posted by somebody other than the copyright holder, we'll sue you, and it'll be a $5 million fine every time we find one.
Well, wasn't it just as simple as moving your server somewhere else again?
Well, they are actually a legitimate site. They are using Mininova as a content distribution platform for copyright material. They say, look, if you know, copyright holders, you've got to get with the times. People are stealing your content. It's that simple. Now, you can either give them easy access to it so that make it easy for people to pay you for it, and that's what we're here for, or they're just going to keep stealing your content. And unfortunately, instead of embracing it, some content rights holders certainly have embraced it, and you'll still find a lot of legitimately placed material there. But all of the stuff that might not be legitimate, that's all got to go. So rather than embracing the model, the copyright holders have basically just stuck to their hard and fast line, which is no, you'll buy a copy on a disc, or you'll not buy it at all. And if you do buy it on a disc, we reserve the right to cripple it or to make it, you know, not play in certain situations and all that kind of rubbish that goes with digital rights management.
What's the difference between what's happened with the Pirate Bay, where it's still continuing, and still nothing has changed on that site, and yet the operators that were found guilty in a court?
Well, that's right, but different courts in different parts of the world, and a different response from the website owners. So Pirate Bay have basically given the courts the big finger and said, well, we'll just move the servers somewhere else. Thanks very much. Try and keep up with us. They are purely a guerrilla movement in that regard, whereas Mininova tried to offer an alternative to that approach, and also to the hard and fast approach of the copyright holders. But by trying to tread the middle ground and sort of bring everybody together, they've sort of been forced to basically close down as much of their operation.
Well, there's a message in that, isn't there?
Well, there is, isn't there? And I'm not entirely sure that anybody's ready to answer it, because, of course, the copyright issue is just starting to bubble up again. We had a big run-in with Section 92 earlier this year, which would have seen all the ISPs responsible for all of the content hosted on its servers, and therefore, should you get a letter saying cease and desist, they would be cutting people off left, right, and centre. That was rejected as being unworkable. But now there's this move towards an even more prohibitive piece of legislation called ACTA coming out of the US. So rather than dealing with each country independently, the recording industry associations and motion picture associations of the world appear to have banded together and decided, right, well, we'll just tackle the Americans. We'll make them force everybody to sign up. Otherwise, we simply will stop selling content in those countries. And oh, by the way, you won't get a free trade agreement with the US, which of course every country in the world seems to want.
Which there seems to be a strong movement against that now, which is quite positive for consumers.
You would hope so, because the ACTA itself is being negotiated in complete secrecy in the US. President Obama's also come out saying, "Well, hang on, what's going on here? This is, hardly free and open democracy. Why on earth can't we see what's going on behind the scenes here?" But apparently, no, it would just cause trouble. So
Yeah.
no, we'll negotiate it in secret, and then we'll just spring it on you at the end. Surprise!
Is history repeating here with Mininova? Because before Mininova, back in the early 2000s, there was Supernova.
There was.
And
And as you say, there's Pirate Bay, and before all of that, of course, there was Napster. And this just goes on and on and on. The genie's out of the bottle. You cannot turn back time and tell people, I'm sorry, you cannot share files, because the entire internet is based on making that as easy and as seamless as possible. So trying to sort of retrofit it just doesn't work. That's what Mininova was trying to explain to these guys. You cannot stop people sharing files. They will do it some way, and if they're not doing it through Mininova, they'll do it through another site. So give it another year, and there'll be some other site will be just as big and just as busy, and it'll just be back to square one with Recording Industry Association people suing grandmothers for downloading music, and all that kind of nonsense will just carry on for another year or more. Instead, what they should do is embrace this as a distribution model. Stop stamping out CDs. The customers are willing to do that for you. So, charge less for your music and sell it online. Radiohead made a fortune giving away its albums and letting the punters pick the price.
Now, we will move on, but I'm just looking at Mininova now, and the whole front page has changed.
But most of it's disappeared. There's a blog entry as well that explains all the changes. At the very top of the mininova.org page, you'll see a link to the blog post that explains it all.
Ah, right. Well, that's pretty sad. But at least it's still the Pirate Bay.
And there'll be a son of Mininova, Micronova.
Exactly.
That'll be along shortly, I can well imagine.
Yeah. All right, now go put that chafing Vodafone harness on.
The red one? All right, hold on, I'm struggling to that. I really need a kind of a zipping noise. We'll have to work on some sounds for that, I think.
Because we're going to talk about radiation. Now, the Green Party have brought this up earlier on this week. They want to see some kind of review into where cell phone sites are placed around New Zealand, because they are worried that we're all going to get the big C.
Exactly. Based on a misunderstanding of what cell phone towers do. So I thought the easiest thing to do is to point you all to a website which I've sent through to you, emfexplained.info, which has a for those who care, has a fairly straightforward approach to explaining what electromagnetic frequency is, why it's not going to make you grow a tail and an extra arm, and just what sort of things out there in the world pump out electromagnetic frequencies or make use of the electromagnetic frequency.
Yeah.
So there's a nice little picture that compares the power outputs, because that's really the key here is if it puts out a lot of power, you don't want to stand too close to it. And the more power it puts out, the further away you want to be.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a nice little picture on this website that explains it all and talks about, well, okay, let's put these things in context. So cell phone towers put out, what are we looking at there? 1 or 2 watts of power. Whereas your FM radio, for example, not pointing the finger at anybody, Kiwi FM,
no, of course,
I believe you've got FM in your name there, 20 to 100,000 watts of power, which is markedly higher, thousandfolds higher, isn't it? The difference is, of course, that radio antennas tend to be up on the hills because they're broadcast, they're going one way, whereas, of course, cell sites are smaller. But you need more of them because it's two-way. You've got to be able to receive stuff from them. So with cell phone towers, there's really, I've just put one in my house. Is the simple way of putting it. They're just like your Wi-Fi transmitter. I've put a booster antenna in the house because I'm in a bit of a shadow and can only get marginal 3G coverage. So now I get great cell phone coverage throughout my house. It doesn't need orange sticky tape on the floor to warn people not to get too close to. It's just like having a Wi-Fi modem stuck under the desk in the office.
Yeah, so just getting to the basics of this, you're saying, and I'm looking at the diagram now, saying that cell phone towers put out less radiation than TV and radio broadcasts.
Oh, by a long chalk. Yep.
But I think Okay, so in effect, if we were going to take this seriously and say, okay, these things are evil and must be switched off, you wouldn't be looking at cell phone towers with their 1 or 2 watts of power.
or a cell phone base station, those big ones with the big sort of privet turnaround, which can broadcast up to 50 watts of power, you'd be switching off TV and radio because, frankly, 100,000 watts of power, if the skeptics are to be believed, and there is absolutely no evidence that these things cause any problems, then it's TV and radio broadcast towers that cause the most trouble.
But we would like to eventually see some absolute conclusive research, and it's worthwhile doing that, right?
It is, and the World Health Organization has been doing that over the last decade. They've got a study called Interphone, which is due to be released, or potentially by Christmas, which looks at a huge number of studies all around the world, including New Zealand, into the cell phones themselves, and whether or not there is any evidence of increased sort of brain tumors or increased risk of cancer from using cell phones. Chris Barton in the Herald on Sunday last weekend had a great